one.
Meanwhile, the only thing that they really rebranded were Oracle's
Doge?
dossiers.
Oh. Okay. Basically, okay, lots of new websites with a lot of certificates, okay, that are going up. These certificates are no bueno, okay? They are like magical spells that let the government steal FEMA funds from blue states. Don't let them do it. We're watching part 2. Okay. I think that the okay, one thing I keep stressing that I think we just don't really have the civics to understand this is you have your executive branch, you have your legislative branch, and then you have your Supreme Court, okay? In the executive branch, the way that the executive branch is organized is you have all of these different offices, okay? And then the president is tasked with officers that are generally confirmed by the Senate to run these different offices. So, for instance, you have the office of the White House. This is where your chief, I don't know if the head of the office is technically, I think it's the president, right? And then you have your first up person is, it's the woman who has cancer. I don't know if she's there anymore. And then your deputy is the Stephen Miller guy, right? This is how, the office of the White House is typically how other people connect to the president is by going through this. Other people in the executive branch. You might have your office over here is the State Department. You might have an office over here is the Department of Justice. These are the different offices that are within the executive branch. So I keep saying this over and over again that not only is the president, Donald Trump, not only is the president running everything, I always say the White House. I'm not just saying it as like a cute shortcut, like, oh, what does the White House think about this foreign policy? Like people will say like the White House instead of the United States of Trump, right? When I say the White House, the reason why I say explicitly the White House is because Trump has been pulling more power into the office of the White House, not just getting the executive branch to do shit without congressional approval, but getting the White House explicitly to do everything. So one example of this might be, I don't know 100% how this is pulled together, but like you have this, your director of national intelligence pulls information from all of your little, all of your intelligence offices that are within the executive branch. And this looks like DUI. This is what Tulsi Gabbard was the head of. She's on the way out. But like when we went to war with Iran, it seems like Donald Trump is making all of these decisions within the White House, and he's not really pulling from his other offices. He just wants to do everything here. So what this lady figured out through just a little bit of clever, I don't know if you call it web reverse engineering or whatever, is that it seems like the White House itself is starting to create parallel websites for things that you would expect to see from the State Department or from other departments in the government. Other departments in the executive branch that shouldn't really be under the office of the White House. So that thing about passports seem to be a thing that's managed by the State Department. And when you go on a government website, like every single time you go on a government website, usually there's like specific ways that they're supposed to handle data. They can't, like the way that they do it is all designated by Congress. I feel like usually didn't there used to be like a pop-up and it would say like, warning, you're on a government website, so we can fuck your shit and blah, blah, blah. But somewhere on this webpage, there's going to be like a disclaimer for how every government website has to manage, an official website of the United States government. Here's what you need to know. And there's going to be policies for how all of these are managed, okay? However, if the White House is setting up its own sites, and if it's using these other services to like bounce information around for individuals that are accessing those websites, we don't really know what information the White House is storing on you because it seems like they're not really following the policies laid out to these other departments from Congress as the departments are authorized by Congress, right, that are functioning in the executive branch. So it's just like, it feels like there are websites being stood up right now that don't belong under the White House office that are being set up under the White House office. That's like we don't know why. It's kind of weird. Well, it's very, 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 very fucking weird. But everything in this government is very weird, so it's hard to sound the alarms on anything. But that's basically what that video was about. Okay.
Is passports.gov an official authorized U.S. Department of State website?
Let me double check.
Are you guys aware that
Like, it's hard because this is one of those things where if you understand, it's like it's very fucked up. But if you don't understand, it seems like it's not a big deal at all. So passports are, my understanding based on her video, is passports are a thing that are done by the State Department. So why is there a passports.gov that's being managed by some subsidiary in the office of the White House? That doesn't make any sense. It's really, 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 really weird. That shouldn't be happening. Because everything that is allotted to the State Department and the charter, I don't know if you call it the charter, the law, whatever the fuck, for the Department of State to run is going to be authorized from Congress. So all the restrictions and how they can handle people's data and what they're allowed to do, not allowed to do, all of that is authorized by Congress. It's part of the Department of State. We don't know what the fuck the White House would be doing with any of this. They don't have the same regulations or restrictions. They really probably shouldn't be doing this at all. It's very, 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 very fucking weird. And then she's trying to tie all of this to the idea that whatever data they're funneling from people that are maybe accessing some of these sites might be going to that massive server warehouse underneath the ballroom or whatever that Trump is trying to build. One more other weird thing is the government has been desperately trying to get a hold of all the voter data, and I don't know why. I'm not sure why, but they've sued for it. You've seen certain data being harvested by FBI subpoenas. We saw that was it Fulton County? Is that where Tulsi Gabbard showed up? You've seen the government asking states to give voter data. You've seen the government try to restrict the United States Post Department, the USPS, the United States Postal Service, from doing mail-in ballots unless the state has made all the voter information available. Lots of really, really weird stuff going on there. Yeah, and then, okay, so Lithics has come around. Good job. I realize why people don't I always complain when people do journalistic videos. Like, it feels like you really don't know anything about their process. But looking at her go through her process, it seems like the two reactions are either, this is way too tech heavy and I don't understand it, or it's a bunch of people in chat that understand it who are literally actualing every single fucking point she brings up, which is, I don't know if anybody in chat that was bringing up any actuallys, if it actually contradicts anything that she said. So, Jesus fuck. Okay.
Is passports.gov an official authorized U.S. Department of State website?
Let me double check.
Are you guys aware that passports.gov exists and it's registered to the executive office of the president?
That is very interesting.
The idea Doge has made its way through all the agencies. Not just one agency, not just one website. All the websites. All the agencies. All of the digital touch points between the U.S. government and the American people.
The problem is that I'm so curious how much is intentional or not. The problem is we've spent so many years, so many decades. Think about like every comedy movie you've seen, every action movie you've seen, every single thing I feel you've ever seen of the United States government always paints it in like a really malevolent light. You know, it's like a secret Blackbriar, secret program authorized for black sites, abduct Americans. Everything's ran through. One guy controls the whole thing. Evil people, bureaucracy. Congress is fake. The senators are all in on it. Like, when you've gotten this shoved down your throat for decades, or maybe more than decades, it's like you don't realize that when it's actually starting to happen, maybe this is really, really, really fucking bad because people think it's already the case, right? So, like, if you were to, my guess is if you were to poll the average American, you know, do you think that the United States, this is for sure after the Snowden stuff, who, by the way, is a full-on Russian stooge now, is the U.S. government tracking every single thing you do online and storing it somewhere to illegally access it, to look through it, whatever they want, to create, like, a file on you? Like, I feel like 95% of everyone say, oh, yeah, of course, obviously they're doing that. Yeah, of course. So then when Trump actually starts doing this, through the office of the White House, I mean, who cares? The government already does anyway, right? They must, right? Like, that's the feeling. But
Let's talk about passports. See, your passport is one of the most important documents that the federal government will ever issue you in your lifetime. It carries your name, your face, your social security number, your place of birth, all of it serving proof that you are, in fact, an American. And all of it signed and stamped onto a single piece of paper that gets processed by one single office. The State Department. They are the only ones in the federal government who are actually allowed to issue you one, and the data behind it sits inside the State Department walls, protected by some of the strongest privacy laws this country has. And so when I found a website called passports.gov, not attached to the State Department at all, in fact, but instead attached to the Executive Office of the President of the United States, and built by National Design Studio, needless to say, I got a little bit concerned. Now, if you're just joining us, I do recommend going back and watching the first part of this investigation, as there's a lot of context there that I'm not going to repeat tonight. And if I move kind of fast throughout this video, then fear not, because I would like to invite you to join me on YouTube Live officially Tuesdays from 5 p.m. to 6:30-ish p.m. Pacific Standard Time, where I'll be basically doing a deeper dive on the deep dives that I already do, because apparently we still have not hit bedrock. But it'll be a great chance for us to just slow down, to just talk through some of these investigations, to talk about the things that got, cut off the chopping block, and for you guys to ask questions, and for us to also kind of problem solve together, talk about things that we can do to better protect ourselves in the surveillance apparatus that's being built around us. Anyways, I'm really excited. I think it's going to be so good, so healthy to have these kinds of discussions, and I look forward to seeing you there. Tuesdays, 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Wow.
So if you didn't watch part one, the long and the short of it is this. In August of last year, Donald Trump signed an executive order called America by Design, and under it, he created a brand new federal office called the National Design Studio. Their chief design officer is Joe Gebbia, and he's the former co-founder of Airbnb, and it is staffed with people who used to work for the critically acclaimed Doge, which, lest we forget, got sued in federal court for letting outside parties unlawfully access federal personal data. So yes, National Design Studio, NDS, is basically Doge 2.0. And the deeper I get into this investigation, the more I firmly believe that the National Design Studio is building a parallel federal government inside the executive branch, running on private infrastructure, operated by the same people who got caught giving outside parties access to that federal data last time around. So I'm a bit concerned all around. And the scope of what National Design Studio seems to be doing is quite overwhelming. I mean, I am up north of 50 different .gov websites that I have found that were all built by NDS, and all of them being registered to the Executive Office of the President. Instead of the federal agencies whose names are on them. And look, I'm still unpacking a lot of it, but for tonight, I would like to dive into two specific pieces. The first one is passports.gov. And the second is its sidekick, a federal website called login.gov, which is a system that the federal government uses that basically verifies who you say you are. In fact, login.gov got a pretty concerning feature over the last 60 days, and it's that feature that lets outside systems verify Americans without actually letting those Americans even be in the same room. And believe you me, we are going to unpack all of that very soon. But once you understand passports.gov and login.gov together, I think you can start to see what they're being built to do, and just as importantly, you can see when they're going to do them. And that when is a little sooner than you may think, because this summer is Freedom 250. And that's the White House's name for America's 250th birthday on July 4th, 2026. Not to be confused with July 5th of 2026, which happens to be my 30th birthday, which, according to the Trump administration's official age conversion chart for women, is probably also 250 years old. Not that I'm complaining that I aged out of that. Anyway, the reason I bring that up is because the 4th of July is shaping up to be a very, very big day, not just for America, but because it's a big day for America's surveillance apparatus, since a whole lot of switches seem to be getting flipped on July 4th. Anywho, so let's start with this federal website that I found, passports.gov, which, by the way, is not a federal website, at least not in the way that we're used to. It's not registered to the State Department. It is registered to the White House, the executive branch. And you'll notice that when you type passports.gov in on a computer, it'll redirect you straight to a sign-in gate called auth.passports.gov. And if you do it over your cell phone, then some people just get an error message instead, depending on how many blockers you have. I mean, either way, you never actually reach the passport.gov site. You just get this wall, and there's no front door. Well, I mean, there is if you're on the list. So let's pull it up. When you look at the page, you'll see the single white blank page and this one email field and a button that says send code. And you'll notice that this looks nothing like a regular government website, right? There's no State Department seal, no agency name, no privacy notices at the bottom, no FOIA requests, no this is a government website, here's how you tell signs, like nothing. So I decided to go back to the certificate records to see if maybe there was something I was missing, which by the way, those are public logs that have a list of every subpage that a website sets up behind the scenes, you know, like the ones that you never get to see from the front end. And what I noticed was that there were 3 separate subpages that were set up and existed just for photos alone, which is extremely odd because a sign-in page doesn't need a photo server, let alone 3, because that's not what logging in looks like. So what do you need the 3 photo servers for? I mean, that is the shape of something that is built to collect face photos in bulk, it seems. I mean, what other kind of passport photos are you taking? And so I looked up when the site was built and by whom, because the records all track when websites go live or are at least public. These logs show that back in April of this year, before passports.gov was ever even public, the site was already running on National Design Studio's own web system, on the studio's own address and the studio's own servers. And then it was on May 5th, 28 days later, that the public version went live. As a matter of fact, there are 2 of them, passports.gov without the S and passports.gov with the S. And both are registered to the White House rather than the State Department. And honestly, it's that ownership that's the whole thing, right? I mean, a federal site owned by a normal agency falls under the Privacy Act, for example. You can FOIA it, an inspector general audits it, and there's this public list of who's allowed to see your data. Meanwhile, a site that's owned by the Executive Office of the President can instead fall under something that's called Presidential Records Law, which can seal these records for years, maybe up until 2040 with no inspector general. And sealing records like that cuts only one way, doesn't it? It locks the records away from the public, the press, and the courts. But the data...
It really is crazy how mad MAGA was about Hillary having her own email on a private server, but nobody will care about Trump routing all government interactions and data to what is essentially his own private infrastructure. You type that, and I was about to give the standard spiel about, well, they don't actually care about any of this, and they just like virtue signal all of it. But you know what? I actually totally understand now. Who's mind melded with me? Why do you think they were so fucking mad about that? Why do you think they were so fucking mad about that? People are saying they didn't think of it first. People have done this for a while. Farazi Wazi got it. You know why they were mad? It's because when the Russian grew up, Guccifer hacked the DNC servers for whatever reason. I don't know if Hillary's people just had better data practices or whatever. They never got into Hillary's email server. And I bet that's the thing that they were the most fucking ass-pained about. Hillary's email server never got hacked. And I think they're ultra fucking ass mad about that they couldn't get in there to dig through shit like they did for Hunter Biden stuff, or like they were able to for the DNC stuff. I bet that's why they were fucking ass pained about it, because they never actually got in. That's why Trump was fucking begging, if you find Russia the 30,000 emails, you'll be greatly rewarded. That's why they were so fucking ass pained about it, I bet. Weren't the WikiLeaks her emails? No. I believe the WikiLeaks, all of that came from that was like the Podesta stuff and the DNC stuff. Now, there were emails from Hillary, but those emails came from her own email server, not from the State Department one. And they were like, where the fuck is this bitch sending emails from? God damn it! Where are her emails coming from? Why can't we see them? And that's what they were super ass pained about. I bet that's the reason why.
The data still gets to live somewhere, and where it lives is on private infrastructure. And so the idea that all of these contractors and private companies would have access potentially to my data, but I wouldn't, is alarming to me, right? And I wanted to make sure that I wasn't the only one who knew about this. Right, Newton? Come here. You do not want your data taken by the White House under the executive office. We want access to our data now. Data sovereignty now. But look, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. I mean, maybe this is just some kind of misunderstanding. Maybe the State Department knows about this website. Maybe it's their website. Maybe I'm just overthinking this and blowing this way out of proportion. And so I decided to call the State Department and ask them about their own passport site. And this is what they said. hope I don't get copyrighted for this music.
How can I help you?
Hi, I am calling because I just wanted to ask, I'm trying to renew my passport. Is passports.gov an official authorized U.S. Department of State website?
Let me double check. I don't believe so. Let me just bear with me just a moment.
Yeah, of course, take your time.
I don't believe so. I don't. No, ma'am. You do everything through state.gov.
That's very fucking weird, right? I don't know how I could make any analogies, but that's incredibly fucking weird that there would be a .gov domain site, right? Because that TLD, that top level domain is a .gov. That is a government website, I believe. I don't know how they do it, but only the US government should be able to register sites to that TLD. So the idea that there's one called passports.gov that that shouldn't have anything to do with your passport because that's all run through the state.gov department or whatever that's weird. That's very, very, very weird.
So passports.gov is not an authorized department of the state.
No.
Okay.
No,
Are you guys aware that passports.gov exists and it's registered to the executive office of the president?
I would have to super pay attention to what she was saying before, because I wasn't that, like, the way that she said that it was designed by these DNS people. Is that what they were? Something National Service, Domain National Service, or what were they called? There was a name for these people, or Digital National Service, or NDS, National Digital Service. I wonder if, like, based on how they run that site, could they literally just scam people? Like, could they literally just be routing requests from that .gov to other servers and to just literally fucking scam people on shit because it's not even like an official executive branch department tech thing that's handling this. It's just the White House's people, which it sounds like they're outsourced to some weird private dudes who also were heavily affiliated with the Doge stuff. Why are the snarkers working overtime to get Ethan to sue you? What do they gain from that happening? Because if they can turn people against each other, then it helps them because then it means that we're too busy fighting each other than to focus on how fucked up they are. People have been pushing for Ethan to sue me for a long time. They pushed for him to make the pedo video on me too, so hopefully Ethan is smart enough this time to resist. We'll see.
No, I'm not, but I will do some digging because that's very interesting. Thank you for that.
People are asking, or people are saying that, like, well, this normal employee isn't going to have any information about this. Well, that's important, right? Because that means that the training they have is they weren't informed that this is a site that even exists, right? That tells you something about what the average employee is being told, which tells you something about what the training is right now for these people, which tells you the level of involvement they have with the creation of that site, which is probably nothing. But it's not just the passports thing. She was saying they were standing up a whole bunch of other websites to be parallel to other federal departments.
I will do some digging because that's very interesting. Thank you for that. I'm really doing some digging right now. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, any of your...
Like, normally, that's kind of a big deal. I don't know if the U.S. if this is actionable, like, legally, but a common way to scam people is, my guess is you can probably go to, like, usapassports.com, and it tries to look like an official... I'm just making that up. I don't know if this is a real website or not. usapassports.com. So, like, if you were to accidentally type this in and go here, then you might think that, like, oh, this must be, like, where I go to get a passport from the United States of America. But, like, this isn't the actual passport site, and people could scam you. Oftentimes, these sites will charge way more. There could be, like, I mean, it could just be, like, a straight scam site where it's collecting your information and not giving you a real product at all. But one of the ways that you know is that it's a .com instead of, like, a .gov. But if it's a passports.gov, it's, like, very, very, very weird.
Anybody that you can let know, too, within the department to help dig around in that would be great, because... yeah, we should definitely have, like, a federal register notice if not.
Yes, ma'am. You are correct. Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate your help. What was your name? Okay, awesome. Well, thank you.
Really?
People can name people that?
Have a good rest of
Bro,
your day.
that's crazy.
Bye-bye.
Yes, ma'am.
Wait, do we know .gov sites are the only?
Guess,
that's only government shit. Like only the United States government can do that, right?
I believe only the U.S. federal government. I think. Yeah. Why?
You can only U.S. federal gov do .gov because that is insane.
What?
That they would have passports.gov, but it's not like handled by the Department of Homeland
State.
Security or whatever.
Yeah.
Yes, Department
Yeah.
of State. Sorry.
Yeah. It's one might say it's kind of weird.
Is open to all legitimate U.S.-based government organizations. This includes state governments, local, U.S. territories, federally recognized Native American sovereign nations, etc. Pretty weird.
It's news to them. This is really fucking concerning, guys.